Welcome to Power Your Story, a podcast produced by high school students in Chicago with the support of After School Matters and the creative Impostor Studios. My name is Maya, and today I will be a co-host on this episode of Power Your Story podcast.
My name is Lily, and I will also be co-hosting.
My name is Malik, and I too will be co-hosting.
Finally, my name's Samantha, and I'll be our last co-host.
Today, we will be talking about beauty standards, online versus offline. But before we dive in, remember, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Power Your Story Podcast, and visit our website at poweryourstorypodcast.com. Enjoy! All right, so any initial thoughts that we want to maybe talk about with beauty standards, especially with this new age of social media, and us being able to kind of interact with beauty standards on the digital level, which is kind of like at our fingertips?
I want to start with, I guess, just overall beauty standards that are pushed onto young girls, in a comparison. For example, the Kardashians, they're getting to the point where even they're not able to sustain the beauty standards and unrealistic things they've set up in looks. And I think as a young girl, and you obviously don't have access to plastic surgery or ways to fix yourself because you're still growing, but because you're not realizing that, you're just looking at the world. And then to hear boys your age compare you to adult women, I think that's really damaging on your mental, and it makes you feel defeated.
Yeah, for sure. I always say this. I feel like nowadays with technology, you can do so many things to photos that look completely unrealistic. You can use filters to get rid of blemishes. You can even edit your body. You can edit your hair color, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem with that is I think we as a society, since we're a digital society, we spend so much time online that we're bound to, kind of interact with these photos, and this content. And that it's unfortunately kind of blown our perceptions of beauty completely out of the park. Nowadays, what we think of as just beauty is just completely unrealistic. It's not how women look on a daily basis. They definitely don't wear that much makeup. They definitely don't wear their hair like that all the time. And even on social media, people say you always want to look your best on social media because that's where there's going to be a bunch of people viewing your posts and stuff like that. And I just feel unfortunately that's had us become completely detached from what beauty really is and the true definitions of beauty. What do you guys think that would be?
I think the true definition of beauty may be something just being yourself, expressing who you are as a person, not even just through how you wear your makeup, but also your clothes, how you accessorize yourself, how you carry yourself in everyday life. I hate to accessorize myself unless it's for special occasions, but I still love to wear how I feel on everyday life. I usually don't dress really nice either unless it's for special occasions, but I like to be able to control that. I don't like to feel pressured about having to wear one thing or another unless I feel like it. So that's just what I feel like beauty is to me.
Honestly, I think true beauty is being yourself, and let's say you have insecurities acne or whatever, you still love yourself and you embrace your own insecurities. And also, if you're insecure about something, you really just try to not let it get to you, and you just try to embrace everything.
That's a great thought, Lily. What do you guys maybe think are some things on social media, maybe with marketing and stuff, that are maybe convincing women that they shouldn't embrace their inner beauty, that they should be just so focused on this outer beauty that is being pushed on them by social media and other digital platforms?
I keep seeing those skinny teas, teas do ever to make girls skinny, and I see girls actually buying it on TikTok, and it's just making me angry because no way a tea will do that, or a protein whatever, or there's cream that's gonna melt off your fat. That is impossible, but people will buy into this, and they will get young kids who are vulnerable, and they will buy it, and it's just really sad to me that they do that.
I want to add on to what Lily was saying, how it's everyone's goal, especially something that's pushed onto women, is to be to look young, to always be in your prime, even if you're aging as you naturally should. But it's anti-aging creams and all plastic Botox and all this stuff that is really oh, you want to look young forever, which that's just not realistic in life in general, because you have to age. That's how life works. The progression of time, you're gonna age, you're gonna look different, you're gonna get wrinkles, even as you're getting older. Even when you're going through puberty and you have acne and your body's changing,
No, for real. And I think one development that I found like really heartbreaking in our current culture is that people like our age, like 17, 18 teenagers are now getting Botox. Like that used to kind of just be something that maybe if you were like an older woman or an older man and you're starting to get a bit more wrinkly, you would get some Botox. But like now young people who like don't need it for like any reason are getting it because they're just so desperate, to stay young and to keep up with these like impossible beauty standards. Unfortunately, I think that it's still very prevalent in our society that we draw a lot of our value based on how youthful we look, how beautiful we look. But like you said, Samantha and Lily, like beauty is just like bound to like, eventually fade. You're bound to age. You're bound to like get wrinkles. Your body's bound to change. You're not gonna be able to look as like young or fit or like keep in shape as you were when you were younger. And it's just really sad because like after that, when you reach that stage, you feel really discarded. You feel like you're not valued anymore, or you don't have value to like give, which is certainly not true. That is just, a false narrative being pushed by our current beauty standards.
I feel like a lot of this is also related to the idea that women only have value as like physical attractiveness, not even because of who they are as people, their career goals, their dreams, their aspirations, just because of how they look, how young they look. And I feel like it's really creepy in a sense because it's like a lot of guys who obviously look much older than they are going to be going after girls, even if they are the same age, they just look a lot younger. And it normalizes this idea of like older guys being with younger looking girls and then older guys being with younger girls. It's so normalized in our society to the point where I'm kind of concerned that we've been like blurring the lines between like online creeps and in-person creeps to the point where you can't really tell these days. And I see like a lot of people get so offended, like, oh, they could just be like really close friends, or they could be father and daughter. And it's like, it's so hard to tell because of this idea that women have to look younger, they have to look a certain way, but guys can do whatever. And I feel like we also need to talk about this idea of men having to look a certain way too, because it's not even just women. Like, guys have to look really buff, they have to have really clear skin, they have to always look a certain way, but they can't like put any actual effort in. Otherwise, they're gay or they're weird or stuff. So I feel like it's just these polarizing ideas are what drives the wedge further between both like genders, and that creates more conflict and more issues in our society.
I agree with every point that you just made, but I do want to transition into how social media pits like one woman against the other one, like based off like a comparison and like, oh, well, her body is like this and hers is like this. Like, for example, if one girl was like more shapely than the other and then compare her to a skinny girl, I was like, well, she's better than her because she has more curves and all this. When that's just like all people come in different shapes and sizes, and like everyone doesn't have the most curves. Like that's not realistic. Everybody's not the skinniest, and I think that's like goes for everybody. I think like body types and just like all men don't have a whole bunch of muscles. Not every man is skinny, but it's just something that society pushes onto you. Like you have to be, like you should have, or if you're not this, you're less than someone else that has this. When really everyone should love themselves, and that beauty comes from inside and who you are as a person, and not just what's on the outside.
I honestly feel that way with school because sometimes like girls like pit each other against each other, and same thing with me because if I'm a bit curvy, they're like, "Oh my god, you're curvy and I'm skinny," and like, "Oh, I want to look like that." And I just think to myself, well, you need to embrace your own like true self and not want to be someone else's body type.
I feel like it needs to be acknowledged, like not just online, but also in person. Like you said at school, Lily, everyone's going to be different no matter what you do. I could work the same like weightlifting course as any other person, and I still may be extremely skinny like I am right now. I'm not upset about it because that's just how I am. I have a really fast metabolism. This may change at some point in my life, but that's the thing. I feel like what's really upsetting about this is that there's so many young girls who are obsessing with looking a certain way when they aren't even fully done growing yet. Like, at least wait until you're like 25 and your body starts like slowing down with the growth of it to start like talking about body goals. And even then, that's still not healthy. I feel like everyone should acknowledge they look a certain way at a certain age and then try to imagine what they may look like when they're older and if they want to look a certain way when they're older.
And another thing that people have to realize is even if you're extremely healthy, like let's say like you work out like Victoria's Secret hours, which are like ridiculous, everybody is going to look different. You know, like some bodies are going to be like more muscular than like other female bodies, you know, and I think like oftentimes on social media, the like really slim or like I said, the Victoria's Secret body is often what's pushed, you know, what you're supposed to look like. But like I said, even if you work out as much as those like women do, and you don't have to, you know, like they obviously do a lot of it because they have to do all those shows and stuff, like you might won't necessarily look like that. You know, maybe you'll look more like, you know, a bit bulky. And that's not a bad thing at all. You know, it's just people's bodies are different and that's meant to be celebrated, not a reason for people to compete with one another, you know, and constantly compare themselves to each other, especially women. I also think that another thing that's really interesting is it's not just about like physical beauty standards. I feel like there's also a lot of like developments on social media that are like pushing for a certain attitude you need to have or like a certain perspective or outlook on life you need to have in order to be attractive. Like I know there's like a million trends that have been going around. Like at one point there's like the clean girl trend where like you cleaned your house and were like hyper clean, you know, and you had all the like trendiest stuff, you know, and like it was all white, you know, and that was what you needed to like be cool or like cute or like in. And like afterwards, like the clean girl aesthetic completely fell out, and then there came like the mob wife aesthetic or something, where now you wanted to be like a mafia wife or something, which is like really weird in order to be attractive. And I think that is just like really weird that like how people's attitudes in order to seem attractive have to change, you know, according to the trends that are on social media. What do you guys think are some like ridiculous trends that you've seen that are like what? Like kind of like the mob wife like trend when I found out about that.
I feel like a good trend to mention about this actually is the morning shed trend. I hate those, not only because they're extremely wasteful, but also because it's like you wake up, you have so much stuff on your face that like it just becomes useless. Like you layer on face mask and other stuff like pore strips, and then like not everything is actually getting onto your skin in the first place, so you're just wasting product and you're wasting your time and your money. It's like people are so obsessed with looking a certain way. I've seen actual people put like bandages, like extremely tight bandages over like their face and their neck to try to like compress it to look a certain way. And that's both not healthy and also a bit dangerous, especially if you're like, I've seen other trends of people like putting things over their lips when they go to sleep. And like, what are you gonna do if like you get congested overnight? Because I know that happens to me a lot. I get congested overnight. I don't know why, but this is just like it can cause so many issues that you may not be aware of at first, and it's just like not even effective in any sense.
I want to use the different ways that I've heard men talk. Like you ever like an Andrew Tate type page, and it's like a man basically talking about this. Like he was using soft girl and like making it seem like a soft girl was like a girl that's just like being commanded by men. Not like in her feminine energy, which all women are feminine. It's just like a woman that asserts herself now is she's masculine. It's like she's being difficult. That's not attractive to men. Men don't like that. Things like that, like putting like a negative, like because if you have opinion of your own, or if you're confident in yourself as a woman, now you're just so manly, and you should just want to be a soft girl. Which there's different ways people use soft girl, but that's just one of the ways I've heard being used.
I remember like the soft girl trend, like, you know, it was like, I'm a soft girl, you know, like I don't work hard, you know, or assert myself, you know, I'm at home, you know, taking care of my husband, you know, like getting pampered and stuff. And, you know, and I mean, like, if you're that type of person, that's cool, you know, if that's what you value. But like, not everyone's like that. And like you said, a woman who asserts herself is definitely not something to be looked down upon, you know, especially by a guy like Andrew Tate, who is very suspect.
It made me think of like for men say like, oh, women like they can't like do lift weights and be like all as strong and they can't be bulky and they have to like do Pilates because I've seen that so much on TikTok. And it's honestly been making me angry because it's our own choice to whatever, and men shouldn't be, doing that. And I just keep seeing it all over TikTok. Oh my God, I'm a Pilates princess. And I'm like, well, but I mean, it's your choice, of course, but I just don't think that they should be like to women, oh my God, you can't look bulky, you can't look like this.
I definitely think that a lot of the marketing for like women's beauty standards is definitely geared towards like, oh, you'll be more attractive to like men. I remember there was a really controversial ad, like a Dr. Squatch ad that was done by a famous actress named Sydney Sweeney. So essentially what the product was it was like body soap, I think, for men. And what happens is that she was kind of like selling it like in a bathtub and like, you know, she was being all like, you know, like sexy, you know, like what men consider to be like feminine. And like people were obviously like, a little bit like upset. They definitely found it cringe. I found it really cringe. And I think that that's just something that I've seen like, a lot these days is that a lot of that like marketing that's geared towards like, not even that, but I just gave an example describing of like a product that was sold to men, and it's kind of still pushing those beauty standards on women. Like a lot of that's very prevalent in the marketing.
Okay, about beauty standards, because I know it kind of sounds like we're focusing on women, but I think that's just like the way that it's going is because most beauty standards like in society are pushed on women. I'm not saying there's not a standard or like a certain way to look that's not pushed on men, but I feel like most of it is hyper focused on women. So that Dr. Squanch ad is like the whole, oh, I'm telling the men I have to be sensual, I have to, oh, dude, like how she was in the bathtub and just like, I just want to agree with you. Very, very cringe, but like she got a lot of backlash for that and like was called, like people were calling her a lot of names and I just didn't agree with that because I was like, I don't think it was that serious, but hey.
Yeah. One more thing I'm going to add, though, like obviously people have the freedom to, sexualize themselves and do whatever they want. If she felt like that's what she wanted to do, if that was important to her, like that's totally okay. I'm saying I think the reason why there's a lot of like negative discourse and why we kind of view things like that in negative life is like unfortunately because men have been using like the marketing culture to kind of push beauty standards on women, a lot, and also to make money. So I think it's very not great.
Have you ever seen like those TikToks where it's like girls talking about like not eating or and just like all their struggles of like, oh, well, because I have to fight so hard, I want to stay skinny, I want to be desirable, or I just want to look good to be happy like with myself because people say this about being thicker or fat or like however people want to categorize it. And I think diet culture in the toxic way is like, oh, restrictive eating and just like not being happy or getting full because you're scared of what could possibly happen, which is being fat. Which most of the people that I've seen like on TikTok, YouTube, or just like documentaries, it's like they've never been fat, but because it's such an unrealistic like expectation of you to be the thinnest you can be, or just like how someone's built that probably had surgery, because that's so like heavily pushed on you, like that creates this like fear in their minds that harm their health and then makes them unhealthy in the long run. And then it's like as you get older, you're going through all these struggles and maybe you have to go see doctors and nutritionists because you are fighting to be thin instead of just being healthy.
Yes, and I will say that this is a bit of a personal example. So, So I definitely do understand the whole thing about diet culture, and something more of a personal anecdote that I wanted to mention was a few years ago during COVID, I started actually watching TikTok and like being more active on social media as most other people did at the time. And I feel like at some point, I don't even know when, this was like before I was even like 12 years old, I started becoming obsessed with the idea of being super skinny, even though I already was super skinny. I was so convinced that I was eating too much and eating too much unhealthy stuff to the point where some nights I would go to sleep and I'd be super hungry, but I wouldn't eat anything because I was like, oh, I need to be pretty so people will like me and stuff. And I feel like it's just such an awful thing to see happening not only to myself, but also to other people I knew. And I did get over that at some point. I'm still trying to, at least. But I feel like it's just such an awful thing to imagine. Like someone so young, not even just me, but like so many other young girls who feel the need to look a certain way and feel such intense pressure that they'll literally starve themselves to the point where it becomes like so unhealthy. Like even years later, I'm still struggling with trying to get back into healthy eating habits, and it's awful.
I just wanted to add with like the diet culture. People are even saying that the 2000s diet culture is coming back with the models and everything. And I kind of see how it is. And I hate how it's like being pushed on these like young kids because they're like, oh my God, like one of the mods, like Gigi Hadid or one of the Hadid sisters, like, oh my God, she eats almonds. That's all she eats. And then kids were like trying it on TikTok. And I think that is so toxic. Like that should not be encouraged. And that is just so horrible. And I just really hope that like it will get better with time, but I'm not even sure with how social media is right now.
I want to add to what you're saying about Gigi Hadid, because even she has came out, her and Bella, they both have talked about the way that their diet was like so strict. And like even I think they have a reality TV show, I'm not sure, but I've seen like clips and it's like, oh, you're not allowed to eat this, oh, you only can eat this. And they talk about how being thin was like the worst thing. And they're still thin, but like being very thin and unhealthy was like one of the worst things for them. And it was like mainly because of their mother and like the way she was like, oh, my daughters have to be this skinny and they have to be booked for these model shows and all that.
You guys want to know a secret? So my dad's kind of a bit of like a health expert, but he actually is really good for his age and he works out a lot, and he's really into that stuff. And he told me a little secret. So oftentimes on social media, they'll tell like men and women, especially women, that you need to cut things from your diet. Like, for example, you can't eat carbs, you can't eat too much protein, you have to eat this very specific diet, sort of like the Hadid sisters described. But what he told me is actually the best way to stay healthy is not to cut anything from your diet. Your body craves everything, so you should eat a little bit of everything. You shouldn't cut carbs, you shouldn't cut fat, you shouldn't cut meat. You should just make sure that your plate is like very balanced. And I think that just goes to show that a lot of these standards and stuff and like these things that social media and like ads claim that you should do in order to stay healthy actually aren't really realistic. They're just a way to like sell stuff, sell an image or sell like a diet to the people. Because, oftentimes like after there's this whole like diet craze, like there'll be stuff in like the grocery stores and it'll be like, oh, this now is 20% less fat, or like, oh, this has like 100% more protein. Obviously that's not realistic, the 100% protein example, but it's true. People use those diets to like market certain things. So I think that people should just stay grounded in like what's really truly healthy for you and kind of avoid all of that diet craze.
I do want to add to your point about diet and how some things are just like they're just to sell. So I recently watched this documentary. It's called Fed Up, and it basically like exposes all the things that the food industry has like basically lied to us about low fat things. Like stuff is low fat, your body craves fat. So when you're eating something low fat, you're gonna eat more of it and more of it because your body wants a healthy serving, but because you're eating less of it, and then you're eating the snack and you're thinking, oh, this is not that bad. It's low fat. It's healthy. You keep going. Then next thing you know, whole bag of chips is gone. But it was like, oh, well, it was less this, it was less. And like, because you're not getting enough, you end up with more than you were supposed to get for like a healthy serving. And how some things are labeled as like with less sugar, but that's not the truth at all. And it's either more, or they just take out a little bit of like flavoring, and then it's just like, oh, they sell it as something that's healthier. The documentary it just exposed everything, and I recommend it.
Can we talk about the overconsumption of skincare and beauty products?
Overconsumption. It is pushed on kids nowadays that they need all these skincare and beauty things, like the drunk elephant kids. And I'm like, why are these kids being forced to get retinol when they're like 10? And it's just pushed on TikTok to have all these like skincare steps, like 20. And it's so overconsumption. And like all these people have all this makeup and stuff because they overconsume. And I just think that the beauty standards like go with it because you gotta get this lip product to look pretty, or you gotta get the skin product to have no wrinkles. And it's just a whole cycle of overconsumption.
Yeah. I actually often question whether those routines work because, like, oftentimes there was a new development where on YouTube celebrities would share like their skincare routine. It would be like 200 steps, of all these different things. And I agree, your skin definitely needs an assortment of things. Like, you definitely need your vitamins, like you definitely need to moisturize. Certain facial scrubs are going to obviously be more sensitive to one person than they are to another. So, like, finding things that work for you. But like sometimes they'll have you layer on like a bunch of different creams. And I'm just thinking about like my skincare routine. Like, I do have a little bit of a problem with pimples, but not right now. Like, all I do is like wash my face, throw on some moisturizer, maybe a little bit of medicine if I have any like pimples that need to go away that are like, problematic. And I mean, I don't think my skin looks any different from anyone who's using a bunch of that skincare stuff. So I often kind of like question whether you should be spending that kind of money, or maybe if you just need to like, stick to the traditional, tried and true skincare routine of just washing your face, moisturizing regularly, and you'll be fine.
Have some advice that my grandma actually gave to me. Whenever you feel like you need something, stop and think about how it's going to help you in the long run. Is this going to make my skin clearer of like acne? Do I have any wrinkles that I feel like kind of don't work with my face? am I old enough to where I think I need to use this like foundation? Do I need this chemical like toner or whatever? And something else I would feel like is a good segue into a lot of other healthy habits, like healthy eating, healthy sleeping, is dress however you feel like it. One thing I've noticed a lot is the way people tend to perceive themselves depends heavily on how they dress. I dress like I'm a homeless person, but I'm a lot happier for it. I go to school, I look like I just woke up under a bridge, but I don't care, and I'm happy because I don't have to feel the pressure of like, oh, I have to look this way, even though I'm just going to school like I do every other day. I'm not trying to put down people who do like to dress fancy, even for everyday things, because honestly, I admire it. I would love to be able to dress that kind of way if I cared more about school. I do not, though. Something else is don't try to fit into any particular size of clothing. Don't try to look any specific way, regardless of age, and just try to dress in a way that makes you feel happy and makes you feel, seen. Even if other people tell you, oh, you should dress a certain way, ignore them. They aren't you. They don't know how you like to dress. They don't know what you like anything about, especially if they're online people with faceless accounts.
Embrace like being your true self and don't even care what social media or the beauty standard says. Just think about yourself and like being healthy, but also being your true, authentic self.
I would just say I agree with Lily. Be who you are. Stop like thinking that you have to live up to expectations that you don't already have for yourself. I think the only people you really have to please is yourself. Like I really think whatever expectations you have, as long as they're not unhealthy or endangering you mentally or physically, I think that's what you should live by. And don't compare yourself to people on social media that use filters, have surgery, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I'm saying if you're not at that point and you don't have those things, or just in general, you should never compare yourself to anybody else because you're your own person and everybody is different.
I would say, once again, channel your inner beauty, channel your qualities, whether that's kindness, or you love sports, like the things you like, the things that make you feel you. I think that's true beauty. And also another thing, just focus on being healthy. Don't let the internet tell you, or a bunch of ads, especially after we talked about overconsumption and like marketing, tell you how you should eat, like just stick to the stuff that your doctor tells you, all of that stuff, and you'll do fine. Don't buy into any of that. It's not worth it.
Thank you all for tuning in today's episode of Power Your Story Podcast. A reminder that Power Your Story Podcast is produced by Chicago high school students with production support from After School Matters and Creative Impostor Studios. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Power Your Story Podcast and visit our website at poweryourstorypodcast.com. I hope this episode has prompted you to expand your ideas on what beauty is. Don't feel pressure to compare yourself to others. You are perfect the way you are.